So good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are, and welcome to my Facebook Live. I'm absolutely thrilled, delighted, and honored to introduce you to my teacher, Blackfoot Elder Pablo Russell. Hi, Pablo.
Hello.
Thank you so much for accepting this invitation to join us here today. And I know that I'm thrilled that you're coming to Europe after a long while. And in fact, since we planned your visit to the UK, which was even before COVID, wasn't it, Pablo?
Yeah, that's right. It's a long time coming.
It really is. And one of the reasons that we're chatting here today is to talk about the program that you're going to be having here in Hampshire in the UK from the 30th of July to the 2nd of August. And absolutely honoured that you are making this visit to us. But because we've got a bit of time here today, I'm really keen to help people understand who you are and the tradition that you come from and what your teachings are centered on around the path of the buffalo. I was so very honored to meet you some 15 or so years ago when you came to the Czech Republic where I was living at the time, and attended a number of your teachings on the medicine wheel, sweat lodge, pipe ceremony, and all of that. But for people who don't know you, Pablo, please say something about your nation, your people, and where you come from.
Okay, kitkanak sa matsimukpon, istuan na ko kaspkumikon, nitsikana kon nitakaksamakon. I just spoke in my language, which is Blackfoot. My name is Shooting in the Air. My English name is Camille Pablo Russell, and I come from the Blood Tribe, which is a division of the Blackfoot Confederacy. And I come from, I'm a Northern blood, and I come from the Old Agency clan. Yeah.
And tell me something about how is your nation? How are your people today? How do you live? Tell us something about your reservation and how you grew up, if you would, Pablo.
Well, I guess we live in southern Alberta. The Blackfoot people, when we signed a treaty and they asked us where we would like our reservation, if you want to call it, there's 4 tribes, and so they all decided to have their reservations around their Sundance areas. So the Blackfoot, they're near Calgary. Theirs is on the Tobacco Plains. The Pagans are in the Porcupine Hills. That's where they have their Sundances. We are on the Belly Buttes, where we have our Sundance, and across the line in Montana, the Pagans, they have theirs in Two Medicine. So this is where our reserves are today. Yeah. But originally our territory came from Edmonton, North Saskatchewan, all the way down to the Yellowstone, and from the mountain range into Saskatoon there. Yeah. So it was quite big, and Germany fits in there 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah. So we had quite a big area. And now it's quite small, but we still live in our traditional territory. Yeah.
And for people who don't know what a Sundance is, could you explain to me something about that, Pablo? Because I'm sure people will be very interested, but not know exactly what that means in terms of an important ceremony.
Well, I guess it's one of the main ceremonies, and I guess it's named from people that saw it, you know. Um, so I guess the most significant part of the Sundance is when people are pierced in their chest, and there's sticks protruding out, and then there's a thong that's fastened to the ends, and then you're tied to a tree, and you dance like this for 4 days without food and water. So I guess when the first non-native people came, they saw the whole thing. I think that's what stuck out the most, and they called it Sundance. You
And
know, but
and
but but
and you
for
also,
yeah, but for us, we call it Holy Encampment. That's when all the clans come together in the summer when the berries are ripe. So that would I guess it would be our new year to celebrate, and then each clan is a family unit, right? So you cannot marry anybody in your clan because you're all related. So when all the clans come together, and you don't see each other for a year because of our territory is so vast, when they come, then that's when the members of societies, age grade societies, finally can come together as a whole and have their meetings and stuff. And then the clan chiefs come together and discuss, what's going on in the territory and hunting and all that. And then that's when courtship happens, and all that happens when the berries are ripe. And we only stay together for maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then we have to disband again. Yeah. So that's the major, I guess, the major time we gather, and then that's what we call the Sundance, eh? Well, the non-native people called it Sundance, but we call it Holy Encampment. That's in a nutshell. That's just
yeah,
it's
thank
so
you.
much to talk about. It's
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And I just want to say hello to Neil Payne, who's joined us, and he says it sounds interesting, but he couldn't go for 4 days without food and drink. So, but
Yeah.
I know that the Sundance is something. Are you an elder of the Sundance, a teacher of the Sundance? What's the correct way to refer to you? Because I know that you did. I don't know if you still do the piercing Sundance, but I remember it's something very much that you spoke about at the time. So what is your role within that at the moment?
Well, my role at the moment is, I guess I'm Sundance chief. I'm also created a coalition of other Sundance chiefs together for Alberta, so we can support each other and work with fish and wildlife and natural the nature of that's our responsibility, whatever the sun touches. So we have to be advocates for nature as well. But yeah, I am. I guess I ran a Sundance. I started Sundancing when I was 19. So my whole adult life has been devoted to this way of life. Um, you danced for 4 years. I danced for 11 because I did not want leadership responsibilities. I didn't like the politics, but finally you have to do what you got to do, right? So, and then after supporting, I ran my leader's Sundance for 11 years, and then he passed away, and then his son took over, and then I started my own, and have I ran that for 14 years. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we've got some pictures of your teacher, Maurice Crowe, here, and you as a younger man. So let's see
Yeah.
if we can bring those up on screen so people can see that. There. So tell us about that photo, Pablo.
Well, that photo was taken in Dubakol, which is in Hamburg, right? So when I was sundancing, after you sundance, you go on a vision quest. You go on a hill for 4 days, again without food and water for 4 days. And I went to a place called Writing on Stone when I was 25, because I started when I was 19 and finished my 4 years, and I went on the hill, a vision quest. And then I was told to go to Calgary to teach children about the buffalo. And then after that, 6 years, I went on the Chief Mount, and that same buffalo came and told me to go to Europe. So I came to Europe teaching people about what the buffalo told me to teach people and the children and back at home. And then during that period of time, gossip and everything happens when you're doing good. So people are saying, oh, Pablo's just doing whatever in Europe. So I said, okay. So I brought my leader to Europe. So he knew what I was doing. So he came, and he was quite people were quite taken by him, and then he invited some of them to come to our Sundance in Canada. And that's when some of the Europeans came to Sundance with us in Canada. But that's a picture of us in Dubakol, near Hamburg. Yeah.
Yeah, and this picture, is that the same
Yeah,
event? Yeah,
yeah, that's the
same
same
time.
event. Yeah.
And how old were you there, Pablo?
Oh, I don't know. My late 20s, I think. I'm not too sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
lovely photo. And I think also we've got some pictures of your horses and of Chief Mountain. I think there's a mare and a foal, and there's Chief Mountain there in the background. So if you would share with us this vision quest and this important moment where the buffalo spoke to you, take our minds to that and describe for us, if you will, that time.
Well, I guess it would be my second vision quest. The first one was when I went to Writing on Stone, and that's when I initially met that buffalo, and he told me to go to Calgary to talk to children. So I went to Calgary, and I worked at the museum, and I did school programs for 6 years. And I taught a lot of children about the buffalo, and what it means is facing the storm. A buffalo is the only animal that faces the storm, right? And all other animals put their back to the storm, but a buffalo faces, and that's why they're furry in front and the back part isn't. And so that means taking ownership, not blaming others, not procrastinating, not avoiding, but going into life's problems head on and taking ownership and forgiving and healing, and trying to love yourself unconditionally. We love everybody else unconditionally except ourselves.
That's
So, and then okay, so and then 6 years later, I went on Chief Mountain, and the buffalo came again. And this time, Lindsay, the buffalo said to go to Europe, and that's when I came to Europe. Yeah.
And I remember you saying that at the time, that was a challenge for you and that was a struggle for you because, am I right in saying until the age of 26, you'd lived on the reservation, so you'd had little experience of being in cities and you didn't particularly want to be in cities, I can report and recall you saying. Is that correct?
Yeah, when they told me that I had to go move to the city in Calgary, I didn't want to go.
Yeah,
I didn't want to live in the city because I'm used to, and I was very shy. I wasn't talking much of a speaker. I was quite quiet, cowboy, and so I was quite resistant to letting my family know what I dreamt about.
yeah.
But eventually it leaked out, and then I had a dream. I had the earrings and my braids, and my hairstyle, and I didn't even want to do that because I haven't seen this style for a very long time. But anyways, my grandma got a hold of all this through my girlfriend at the time, and grandma's the boss, so she made me follow my dream. And yeah, so after that, then I guess my confidence came up, and I was able to talk to the kids and people, and yeah, so that's how that started. When you find your purpose in life, everything seems to fall in place, and synchronicity occurs because that's what you're supposed to do, right? And most people walk upriver, but when you find your purpose in life, you're walking downriver. You know, you're flowing with life.
Absolutely. And I just come back to and welcome Sharon, who's joining us here today as well. But I just wanted to ask you before I come to Sharon's question that to me, I mean, many aspects of your teachings have stayed with me, but that always stayed with me, particularly about when you find your spiritual path, it's easy.
Well,
And things
it's
flow in that sense that it becomes, as you're talking about synchronicity and all of that, it's like a feeling of things falling into place.
yeah, well, it's your purpose in life, right? When
Yeah,
you're born to do something, you're put here to do something. And today, unfortunately, a lot of people do not find out. And so there's always something missing, right? And then they go on to the next world, and probably they're reborn again to do it again, right? And for us, First Nations people, the system back in the day was when we were 14, when we reached puberty, we went on the hill, and 4 days was good enough for that age because we didn't have any emotional scars yet. We find today people going up in their 30s, or whenever they find their spirituality, they want to pursue it, and they're way older than 14, and they try to 4 days and they don't really get much because they have so many emotional scars. So 6 or 8 days I would recommend for somebody much older than puberty. um, but anyways, that's your purpose in life, and that gives you a chance to talk to your soul because your soul knows why you're here. But it doesn't want to talk to us because we pity ourselves. We don't love ourselves unconditionally. We're that cousin that on the street that says, "Hey, Pablo," and you don't want to talk to that cousin. That's how it feels. But when we're on the hill and we have humbleness and humility and we're teachable, we're out of our ego, whether it's I'm too good or look how pitiful I am, we're just straight up humbled. Then our spirit says, "Hey, Pablo, good to know you. This is why we're here," right? And once you do that, like I said, synchronicity falls in place, and that's the happiest moments in your life, happier than being married or your first child. It's what you're supposed to do. And you create light to the world when you do it. And you see that when you're driving down the road, you're feeling a little bit off, and you turn on the radio, and just that certain song comes on, that voice, and your mood changes, right? Or you see a painting of somebody's, and it changes you, right? Or you
absolutely.
or you see some veterinarian with the animals, and he's magician, or with horses, or somebody with plants, you just can't believe your eyes. This person is a horse whisperer, he's a plant whisperer, he's a water whisperer. Whatever they're doing, they're just meant to do it, right?
That's it.
Yeah, and some, it comes with them. They're born with it. You just can tell that's what they're gonna do, and that's just. But for the rest of us Joes, average Joes, we probably have to go look for it, right? Yeah.
That's it. And just to come back to Sharon's question, she was asking there about how is the sun dance performed today, do you still do a piercing sun dance? Is it in the traditional way, or how is it for people who would just like to know a bit more about it?
Well, the piercing Sundance is happening on its own. Okay, and they're happening this weekend, and they're going to happen all through July and August here in Canada. Every tribe has their piercing Sundance. And then you have the Horn Sundance, which is the old school one I talked about earlier, where all the clans come and you camp in your clans and your Sundance is happening. And that's when the different societies have their dances and they each take their turns. And that lasts about 2 weeks because each one has about 4 days of dancing, and then they feed the public, and then the next ones start and they have their dance, and then they feed the public, and it's quite nice. You get to visit and you're staying in teepees, get to play Indian for 2 weeks, and it's just something that you just don't really have time to do in the regular life, just always working and whatever. But this, you're staying in a teepee and you're not working. You get up early and you go visit my neighbor, visit my cousin. Haven't seen guy over there in forever, and you rekindle relationships, and then you learn. You ask questions. What's going on right now? Oh, they're doing this and that. So it's all of that, and then that's the main one, and that happens August 1st. And there's like 200 teepees and maybe 300 big Winnebagos. It's just crazy today. Not everybody wants to be in a teepee. They want to be in their big motorhomes. Everything is quite modern today, right? But there was a renewal of Sundance when I was a kid back in the 70s, 69, 70, 72, 73. Only, granddad, grandma, dad would drop us off, and put up the tent, and you'd look around, and there'd be about 50 tents, and there were just all old people clinging on to what our old culture was. And dad and his age group and older, they're all very modern Catholic, just came out of boarding school. So that Sundance was for the old people, and bring dad there and grandma and throw one of my sons with them and he can watch them. And so anyways, that's how I grew up, right? And then as soon as that was over, then they brought us down to the Indian Days, which is another week of dancing, which is just social dancing. And that was created back in the day when the Sioux and us were fighting the Army, and the RCMP from Canada made us visit each other. So they would sponsor visits. So we would go down to the Sioux, and they would host us, and then Canada would host the Sioux. They would come to the Blackfoots, and that's where the powwow was invented to prevent us from battling. So we would dance our war styles, and that took out our aggression to fight each other. So now you have powwows. That's where that was developed, to stop us from doing the old school stuff, So yeah, so we would move from the Sundance down to the Indian Days, they call it. And we were there for a week, and then there's different categories. It's a contest, so people, other reserves come and they dress up, they get numbers, and they dance. They're very professional dancers these days, right? And so yeah, and again, there's Midway and just a big festival, yeah.
So I think we've got some pictures of you in your traditional headdress, and some pictures from when there's a social gathering. Let's just see if we can bring those up on screen here so people can see what you look like in that context, which would be quite fascinating. So that's a more recent photo of you.
Yeah, that's back home where I live on the reserve. We live way out in the prairie, and just the other day, my brother had to chase a yearling grizzly bear back over the hills. And in the background, you see that kind of a white there. That's the mountains. So he had to chase them that way. We got little grandkids.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's still a little bit wild out that way, but that's where we live, and that's where me and my wife go to when we get tired of Calgary. Yeah.
Here we are. That's the so tell us about this picture, Pablo.
Well, this is the elders of Calgary, and we are being honored by the city of Calgary for our work that we do in the city, whether it's talking to children or organizations or agencies or the city and the council members about culture and about natural preservation of or conflict resolution or healing techniques from traditional perspectives, like medicine wheels and what have you. So you have a variety of elders here from different nations. So the one on the far left is my good friend there. He's a Cree. And then there's me. I was dancing there, painted up, and next to me is my good friend there, Bruce Starlight from the Tsuut'ina Nation, who lives next door to Calgary. They're Dene, and then the others are from Eastern Canada, and they moved to Alberta. So they're from, I think they're Métis, and they're also Sodo and Ojibways. Yeah, and the one's kind of laughing with the gray blanket there. She came in 1960 to Calgary, and she told me the story of her and her husband coming over the hill, and she's seeing Calgary for the first time in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden there's this city in the middle of nowhere, and that was Calgary. But now I guess it's quite big since she moved here. So there's a lot of pioneers coming to my country, and it wasn't that long ago. Yeah, so they came in here in 1905. It became Alberta. Before that, it was still territories.
Yeah.
So Alberta is very young, and a lot of people are here just not very long ago. Yeah, but we've been here for 18,000 years, and we lived up in Slave Lake for 30,000 years. So there's been a migration to the prairie, hey? Yeah.
And in this picture, you have been granted and gifted an award from the city of Calgary. And what's that for?
Uh well, there was two awards. I got Elder of the Year a few years ago when I was much younger for the work I did, and then this one is for,
I think that was the Calgary.
and then this one is another Calgary Awards. So this is a recent one. So I got two of them for the city of Calgary, but they're quite far apart. One
Yeah.
was in the early 90s, and then this one was much recently, just a few years ago. It's I guess when you do a lot of work for the city and the feedback is so much so that it changes the city, then you get this kind of a award. So I got two of them. Yeah.
And here?
This is my traditional dancing outfit. So this is how I would dress if I was in battle. The paint, you can only paint your face when you get that in a vision. So I got the yellow and the red paint in a vision for war, for protection, for battle. And so I have the right to paint my face. Yeah, with paint. Yeah. So I'm dressed for battle. And it's just like I told you, it's for show, right? It's not real battle anymore. It's a powwow. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So wonderful. So I wanted to just now talk a little bit about what you're going to be doing when you come to the UK, when you come to Hampshire. And of course, one of the central teachings and indeed the workshop that you're going to be doing on the 2nd of August is the Path of the Buffalo Medicine Wheel. So anybody who wants information about this can send a message to my Facebook page, Lindsay Percival Medium, and you can also email me at info@lindsaypercival.com. And there are also details of the full program and how to book on my Facebook page. But Pablo, please tell us about a medicine wheel and what will be happening in that workshop and what people can expect to gain from it.
Well, a medicine wheel is a current terminology for a diagram that has traditional teachings. So, prior we never drew anything. It's an oral culture that we have. So if we're ever going to draw a diagram, we draw a circle. So whether it's Cree or Blackfoot or Sioux or whatever, if we have to draw something, we're going to make a circle and we're going to talk about it, right? So people kind of labeled it as a medicine wheel, okay, because it's a circle. A real medicine wheel is out on the prairies and it's a circle of rocks and it kind of looks like a wagon wheel, and only beaver men know what that is. It's a constellation calendar and all that. Not the average person knew what that was. It was the high spiritual people. And then there's another one, a smaller one, was when a chief dies, they make a circle saying, this guy's gone, because we're in the middle of nowhere and we see these rocks and that's our news, eh? So this is a diagram describing a teaching of life. Okay, so this is this medicine wheel. So in this wheel, it's the 4 parts of who we are. We have a spiritual part, we have an emotional part, mental and physical. And we put a lot of energy in some areas and very little energy in others, which creates an imbalance in us. So it kind of describes that imbalance and how to bring the more attention to the ones that have little attention. And there are gates that allow us to do that, right? Because so I always start off by saying, in former times, most people globally were put a lot of their attention in the spiritual and the physical, and very little attention in the mental and the emotional. And so it had its, problems in those times because of that. Arranged marriages, not much knowledge on mental illnesses and stuff like that. You married somebody who maybe never loved them all your life, you couldn't divorce, things like that. Anyways, today globally, everything has flipped. So everybody is in the mental and the emotional and very little in the spiritual and the physical. And the mental and emotional, as you know, they clash. It creates uncertainty, fear, so on. It's competition, competitiveness, and then we lose our humanity, right? And that's where we come to as spiritual people, and there's a spiritual quest globally. And what they do is they put the spiritual and physical in combination, which is a ceremony which allows your awareness to get away from yourself, and it allows your mental and emotional to shake hands.
So I know that when you do this teaching, it's incredibly profound, it's very emotional, and that you touch upon things from where there have been ruptures and challenges throughout people's lives, starting from early childhood. And you talk about that also in your book, The Path of the Buffalo, which will be available for people to buy. And those problems where people have had difficult childhoods. That's all of your family here. Maybe we'll talk about that in a moment. But how do you see that then about the problems that, particularly in early childhood? Because as a psychotherapist, I know from working with my clients that lots of those, let's say, challenges that people have go back and have their roots in what has happened in early childhood. So could you speak about how the medicine wheel addresses that, Pablo?
Yeah, well, it's implicit memory. We are programmed, right? If we go back to the diagram that you just showed me before, the two diagrams, if we can go back to that, there's another wheel that I didn't talk about, which is the faith, love, honesty, and sharing. So that's this diagram was created by elders that were over 100 years old. My teacher asked them what was a perfect life prior to contact, and they told him. So he made this diagram, and then we overlapped our life to this perfect life, and we see what we're missing and we fill it in. So it's kind of like an outline. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So where most people have problems is from 0 to 4, it's just that motherly love, that nature. We're not on our mom's back.
Yes.
And that creates that inability for our brain to develop chemicals that take care of stress, that take care of trauma, that alleviate emotional pain. So back in the day when we were on our mom's backs, when we grew up, we saw maybe a battle or something, and we saw, carnage and just a really scary event. And then the next day, chemicals came out. The next day, life went on. Today, we're not on our mom's back. So when we see something very traumatic, it lingers. And sometimes it brings us very down a very dark path. We end up in the streets or be alcoholic or incarcerated or something, right? There's no chemicals that help that alleviation. So this is an example why mom and then grandparents, that's our roots, our lineage, where we come from. Then we know where we're going. A lot of people are confused about life. So that explains why grandma and grandpa are so important, right? And then dad is there for safety, for protection, and to, guide you to the next step, which is being a teenager. And I think a lot of people, globally have some problems in those three areas, right? Lack of, maybe, right? Maybe they do have them there, but they're not present. Maybe they're working or whatever, and maybe grandma and grandpa aren't really teaching the root stuff. Maybe just more the lovey-dovey stuff and go fishing, but not this is your roots, this is your history, this is. And so anyways, those are things that lack. And then as a teenager, we're lacking that rites of passage, to let you know psychologically now you are a young man or you're a young woman. And I think society as a whole, we do not have that rites of passage. Certain nations still carry bar mitzvahs and stuff like that, but I know here at home we don't have that anymore, to go on the hill at 14. And I think reestablishing some of these old school things will help people. It doesn't matter if you're First Nation or just whoever, because we're all humans. This will work for anybody, right? Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and so at 14, knowing what you're gonna be, everybody's dream, right? And then you can do the rest of your teenage life as going to school for that, to, as an apprentice for that, whatever it is you're supposed to do. And then as an adult, whatever happened as a child, you play it out now. So you were programmed as a child. Now you play it out. Now you become your dad or you become your mom, right? And the patterns also follow. And I think that's where a lot of people will like to correct those patterns. And so,
And I
yeah.
know that in your workshop also, it's extremely practical and it's interactive, that you explain the model and that also you're generous to explain those different points within your life that you experienced as challenges and how that changed you and how you grew from that or what you experienced. And I know you're a very generous teacher in sharing of your own pass, but also that people are invited to share their challenges and to speak about these things too. And I know that it can be an incredibly moving and powerful and enriching workshop. Could you just speak to that for a moment?
Yeah, well, it took me, I guess, 13 years before I was able to teach it. And I guess I had to change my patterns and things that I went through, hey. And then once I was able to do that, then my teacher said, "Okay, now you go teach." Right. And so that's where that all began. And I think 13 years was what I needed, because when people do their wheels, there's things in the wheel, the diagram, that I see that maybe not too many people can see. And then I will be able to just ask that individual, this is what you need. And it'll be totally different from the next person. So it's kind of a guide for, and I think that's why it's very powerful at times, hey, when we get into that deep part of the wheel, when we do it like that. Yeah.
But people come away also with the understanding of what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses and how to come from a place of strength. And that always stayed with me to look at. Oh, and here's a picture of your son, Peter, and here you are with your dog, Spooky. Is that right?
Yeah, that's Spooky. He's
Wow.
guarding him. Yeah.
Yeah. But so the program will run from the 30th of July to the 2nd of August. All the private one-to-one consultations with you have unfortunately sold out already. People were very keen to take that personal time with you, and you're going to be doing a talk. You're going to be offering on the Thursday in the evening, 7:30 to 9:30. On the Friday, you're going to be having hosting a family gathering. Here's you again on the reservation. That's a lovely picture. Is that a more up-to-date picture, Pablo?
Yeah, we were barbecuing there, and I'm always the guy that barbecues. So we got like 50 people show up. So I'm the one that's cooking all the meat. I think it's a whole beef. I've never really counted how much I cook, but that's me, and that's my granddaughter in the box there, and my son next to her. And Rio gave me a blanket because I've been out there for a bit. Yeah.
Wow, that's lovely. Yep. So you'll be doing a family gathering so people can bring their children, grandparents, friends, family, whoever it is. And you're going to be doing songs and drumming and stories from the prairie. Here you are again with your family. Do you want to just tell us briefly about this picture?
Well, that's my uncle, and my mom's in the white. And the left of my uncle, there's his wife, and behind is me and my three sisters and my brother. Yeah, we're all standing there, and then my two cousins are in the back there. Yeah, we're very close to each other. We love each other very much, and we grew up like that. Yeah. And
Amazing.
yeah, and we're all in our 50s and 60s, and we're still very loving and very close. And we have family dinners, maybe 3 times a month. We have we're very close First Nations people. Yeah.
Fantastic. So please contact me via my Facebook page, via email, info@lindsaypercival.com, to find out more details on how to book for Pablo's program. But we're very honored to be hosting you. We're very honored that you're bringing the teachings to the UK for the first time, Pablo. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, the Buffalo told me to come and talk to people in Europe to teach them about the Buffalo, but to encourage them to pick up their roots, to reawaken their roots, their heritage, their culture, their lineage, you know, not the Christian, but where they come from, right? And England has such a rich culture, you know, and I've been to most of the countries, and I'm very, very honored to come and talk to the English people about, you know, reviving their roots, you know, and just sharing my culture with them, you know. Yeah.
Fantastic. And also to say Scottish and Welsh, not to just say English and get ourselves into trouble.
Well, there
Yeah,
you
of
go.
course, we have our own backgrounds, our own traditions, but as you rightly say, quite often we're disconnected from them. And I know that that's a big thing that you speak about, connecting to our own sense of self, our own culture, and our own soul's purpose, which you spoke about earlier. So just to say hello to Raymond Grimes, who's visited this talk this evening, to Warren Jones, who's going to help organize things, to Chris Archbold, who's put together this whole interview for us this evening. Without him, it would not be possible. And just to say, Pablo, thank you again for spending the time this evening, and we will see you very soon. So, and love to Rio and to Peter, your wife and your son, who'll be traveling with you. So that'll be fantastic. So we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
Okay, and I just wanted to have one request for everybody out there that's watching. If you can do something for me, I'd appreciate that. Every time you look in the mirror, say I love you. That's all. Sometimes you'll mean it and sometimes you won't, but keep saying it. And that's going to open some of those unlocked doors inside of you. Thank you, Lindsay. It's been an honor and a privilege to spend this time with you and whoever was listening.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah.